I was working on some research for an upcoming video on shopping and overconsumption, and I stumbled onto this treasure trove of stats from the last 2 years. All of these stats are on impulse spending and emotional spending, and I couldn't resist. We're going to talk about them today. We're going to make a whole video on these stats. I'm going to be talking you through them and also sharing my opinion as to why I think some of these things are the case. And if you are interested in more content on impulse spending, I do have a video from May this year where I talk about it. I'll link that probably in the card, wherever they are. I'm going to share my opinion. We're going to dig into them and we're going to get started. All of these are as of 2022 until later on, we're talking about 2023. So according to a 2022 survey, 40% of e-commerce comes from impulse buying. 40%. 73% of Americans said that the majority of their purchases are spontaneous. Studies have also shown that online purchases are more driven by impulsive buying behaviors than rational, planned, controlled behaviors. So all of these are about impulse buying kind of together. I think 40% is too low because 73% of Americans are saying that the majority of their purchases are spontaneous or impulsive. And I think that there's like an important maybe caveat there. We don't really know how, like what this question looked like where people pose with the question of what percentage, and then we're just told majority. I don't think that's the case, because if it was, then we would probably have some kind of number. Or was it some kind of self-reflective question? How often do you impulse purchase? Or maybe there was or they could have had one of those boxes or questions with like 5 options where it's like sometimes, never, occasionally, something like that. It's unclear what majority means. Is it 50%? Is it 60%? Majority could be something like 35% or even 40%, depending on how many options there are. There is some uncertainty there. But even if we go with 40%, if it doesn't sound like a lot to you, I want to get in your head a little bit. Because 40% is still a wild amount of all e-commerce. Let me just frame this in a couple of different ways, because I love that. 40% of a $50,000 salary is $20,000. 40% of my country's population is 16 million people. I mean, 40% is kind of like the population of Ontario. Also, if you were to get a 40% off sale, I feel like me and you would both be like, wow, incredible. I mean, some Black Friday deals don't even get that good. 40%. I think that the rise of TikTok and TikTok Shop has really contributed to impulse spending, and TikTok built its house on a strong foundation, which was laid by YouTube and Instagram. Both of those platforms firmly entrenched influencer culture, but also really helped to promote this impulsive spending behavior and consumer culture, above anything else, because there are ads that you see on YouTube and Instagram that are a true ad that are flagged as an ad. But then there are so many videos out there where an influencer on some kind of platform has put links in the description of stuff that they've bought, or they've just talked about this really cute mug that they got, or this really great brand of coffee. Are they being paid for it? No. They could be earning a commission through affiliate marketing. But also, influencers have become consumer cultures in themselves, and just by virtue of somebody holding a mug could garner millions of dollars in online sales. So while you're not necessarily getting the ad from the ad, people's lives are now ads. And I was recently watching somebody's wedding video, which was supposed to be really cute and really romantic. it honestly kind of felt like that video was sponsored. I don't know, kind of feel like there was product placements in their wedding video. In addition to both of these things, we can also model behavior we see online. When we see influencers impulse buying, that can really make us want to as well. And the way that they talk about products, the way that they hype them up, you can't you need it, you can't live without it. And we see that so much in our culture. It is very normal. It's normalized. And I actually just want to talk about normalization for just a second before we continue. When we normalize something, what we do is we naturalize it, but it also becomes common, typical, ordinary, listing off some synonyms here. We rarely, if ever, question things that we perceive as mundane or ordinary or normal. This is the power of naturalization or normalization. They render things invisible. Just think about that. One of the hallmarks of power is to naturalize and normalize things, to render them invisible, to make them natural and normal, to things. It's how things always have been. This is how things are. So many of us see overconsumption as normal. This is the way that society is. And this can also be true if we are living in the Western world, but also like majority of audiences in America. If you live in America and all you see are Americans consuming at similar levels or higher levels than yours, we kind of become in this echo chamber, and we don't consider or see other opinions or lives. And we come to see that the quantity of things we own is normal and acceptable. And then this also kind of raises our baseline slowly over time, which is exactly what has happened. Let me give you some stats here. The average person today buys 60% more items of clothing than they did 15 years ago, but we keep them for half as long. The average garment is worn 10 times before it's discarded. 10 times. Also, only 1% of all discarded clothing is actually recycled. 1%. As a society, we are consuming way more than we ever have before, but we are absolutely not happier people. If stuff really equated happiness, if it really brought us happiness, or dare I say contentment, we should be happy by now, right? Like that's the way it should work then. Like we should be happier, but all we've done is increased how much we've shopped, how much we own, and for what? Let's get to emotional spending now. Some good ones here. 76% of people said spontaneous shopping sprees have a positive effect on their mood. And I think there's two stats that might help explain this just a little bit more. And then I'll go into my opinion. Emotional spending is one of the things I love to talk about. 62% of shoppers feel good after they make non-planned buys. The stat said irrational shoppers, which I don't like, so we're going to go with shoppers. And 58% believe they've saved money with their impulse shopping. I think a few things are responsible for this perception or these stats. Saving money gives you a dopamine hit. Really does. Getting a good deal gives you a dopamine hit. Buying stuff in general gives you a dopamine hit. So I think just specifically the sales component really gives people a dopamine hit, which makes them feel good. I also think perhaps the saving money with impulse shopping comes from the sales, but also, inflation in the last year has been kind of wild. So getting sales in this economy I feel like it could make the dopamine hit a little harder. I don't have hard stats to back that up. It's just like a feeling. The main reason why I believe that this kind of shopping feels good is when it's used as a coping mechanism. And a coping mechanism is a way to deal with our emotions. It's an outlet for our emotions, or an avoidance, if you will, and even maybe a substitution. Like we want to feel sad, so we want to feel better, go shopping, and we develop that habit over time. I actually have a whole video on this. And I feel strongly in saying that because of this stat. 67% of respondents admitted to making purchases when stressed. And this is just like one piece of evidence that really shows the relationship between mood and shopping. If we establish shopping as a coping mechanism, we could go to it on impulse, on autopilot, and it becomes this habitual behavior, something that we don't even have to think about. And then we ingrain the habit loop so deeply, cue, craving, response, reward, that like we already know the outcome. And there was this example that I've given several times, which is from Dr. Alex Korb in the Upward Spiral, where he talks about how like we ingrain responses. Dr. Alex Korb writes, each time you follow the same path, it becomes more and more defined in your brain. The neurons are wired together more strongly, and each time you activate that brain pattern, it becomes easier to activate it next time. And so pretty soon it's nearly possible to create a new path. Now, in here, he's talking about this is why it's so difficult to break a bad habit, but this is ultimately every time we do something, we make it stronger. I mean, I just gave you the quote. And so this is why coping mechanisms are so tough to break. They're just wired so strongly, and they are a stress response. And so if we've established shopping as a coping mechanism, we may instinctually go to it when we are stressed because we believe that it can make us feel better because it has in the past. However, it's only a temporary fix, and shopping is more so like an outlet for an emotion. It doesn't resolve the emotion or how you're feeling or resolve the problem itself. Like it's at most a mask. And I mean, you wouldn't participate in a coping mechanism if it didn't serve you at some level, but ultimately, like in the long run, they don't serve us. That's not the point of today's video, but I think that stress in response to shopping and mood play huge roles in why people shop. I mean, I've articulated that belief for a long time. I mean, ultimately, a problem isn't going to go away because you went shopping. Saving money while impulse shopping is actually a really interesting one because we almost never save money buying something. Like you have to spend money in order to buy something, even if it's at a lower cost. You're only actually ever saving money if you were going to buy that thing anyways, and then it happened to be on sale and you got it with the sale price, then sure, you're saving money. But is that how we're spending most of the time? I kind of doubt it. And we're spending more money than we would have if we just never went shopping, even if we got it on a deal. But in the moment, that's rarely how it feels. I've been there, y'all. You know, like, oh man, this is a great deal. And even just like, wow, that shirt is on sale. Oh my God, it's so cute. I love it. It's great. It's a great deal. And it's just like, yes, like it really can be a high to get a great deal. And it can truly feel in that moment like, oh my God, I'm saving money. And it's amazing. When we buy something on sale, it being on sale can prompt us to buy other things because one, you're saving money. So it could be like, oh, what other things can I buy with the money I saved? Or I could spend more money because I saved money. So is that really saving money? I mean, even if you bought something that was on sale and you intended to buy it and you bought it on sale, do you then go and buy more things because it's on sale, especially if you have to, make some kind of shipping minimum, like meet a shipping minimum? Or we buy more things that are on sale too. How many times have you gone into a sale section and you never intended to go into the store, but you went to the sale section, you got it on sale, and then you just kept looking for other things to buy that were on sale? 64% of impulse shoppers purchase additional items along with their intended purchase. So, according to the stats, basically 64% of the time we buy more. Also, you ever go into the grocery store and buy a 2 for $5? There's my grocery store, my local Walmart usually has bread at 2 for $5, and I almost always buy that one because I, put the bread in the freezer. But there's other times where there'll be a 2 for $6 or a 3 for $9 or whatever. And you buy the thing because, oh my God, I'm saving money. But then when you actually go and look at the price of the individual items, you're saving 40 cents total. Or you bought the second thing that you actually really don't need. And even if you saved $1, you still spent $2 more than if you were to just buy the one thing at the more expensive price. It happens. This perception of saving money can lead us to believing or perceiving our impulse shopping in a positive way. And if we see it as a positive thing, then we could be more inclined to do it in the future, or that positive feeling can make us feel like we should do it or continue to shop in this way in the future. An interesting stat as well is that impulsive buyers are less confident, more anxious, and more depressive than non-impulsive buyers. One major factor that I believe contributes to this is trying to find your identity with stuff, or trying to fix yourself with stuff. Kind of both of those things. If you're buying stuff online because you saw it on TikTok, Instagram, or some influencer use it in their feed, rave about it, kind of some iteration of that. If you're shopping in this way majority of the time, or even just a lot of the time, what can happen is passive identity creation. The clothes we wear, the food we eat, how we furnish our homes, the stuff we buy ultimately is self-expression. We buy the things we buy to express ourselves and to fit some sort of aesthetic that we want it to fit. They're a way to express our identity. If in areas of your life, I would say especially clothing, if the main way we purchase is through impulse buys, we can essentially be crafting our identity in a passive way. We're letting other people basically tell us what to buy, and we buy it. So we're not having this intentional and thoughtful approach to what we want to wear, how we want to look, how we want to feel in our clothes. We're just buying things impulsively. Basically, you're not choosing for yourself self-consciously. And I think that this can have ramifications of feeling like you don't know who you are, you don't know what you like, and there could even be identity crises that come from this. I was kind of in that place before I went on my no buy. I bought a lot through impulse buying. That was almost always how I bought. I'm talking more than 80% of the time, could be even higher. And I also was influenced to buy a lot of stuff. And this also happened into 2020 as well. But it was more so I wanted to do something with my wardrobe. So I was looking at how other people were styling themselves, what they saw as fashionable and trendy, and going to all the recommendations. I was self-consciously going to these recommendations. So I was oh yeah, this is I kind of like this vibe. I'm just going to buy it for myself. That still isn't a way. It's less passive than impulse buying stuff, but I just kind of wanted to be told what to buy in kind of a genre that I felt was cute, because then I didn't know, and it just kind of felt easier as well, instead of doing the work to figure out what I like, and even doing some of the other work about who I am, who I want to be, how I want to appear and operate, and how I want to be in the world. Before my no buy, I had a ton of clothes and even makeup that just was bought on whims and not intentionally. So there was a lot of stuff that didn't work, but I also had I felt for a while, I don't know who I am or what I like, because I did not intentionally choose so much of the stuff I interact with every day for myself. My makeup, my hair, my clothes in specific. And I hadn't consciously created my style. And I feel 2022 was the year I really started. I started in 2021, but I do feel even at that point, my style was really being influenced by other people and not kind of coming from within, so to speak. And that's really started in 2022. And funny enough, this year, where I feel I have my greatest sense of identity, that's when I have shopped the least. I haven't shopped this little, probably over a decade, more than that. And this is I'm just one example to talk about passive identity creation and how it can really affect you. We're going to move on to impulse spending or go back to impulse spending. And we're going to talk about categories and stuff first. We're going to do a bit of like a data dump, and then we'll talk about it at the end. So in 2022, the average American spent $314 on impulse purchases. The top 5 categories for 2022 are as follows. We're going to start with number 5. Tech at 27%, shoes at 28%, household items at 29%, food and groceries at 30%, and clothes at 35%. Books, takeout, and coffee have been on the list for the last 3 years as well. And they've represented a minimum, each category, 20%. And in the last 3 years as well, clothing has represented a minimum of 35%. There's a list that's been compiled for 2023. And this list is as of July 26th. So here's how it stands. So takeout was in the number 5 spot at 23%, shoes at 32%, household at 42%, food and groceries 50%, clothing 55%. So here's some good news about 2023 so far. 38% of adults in the US have decreased their impulse spending this year, as compared to 14% in 2022 and 16% in 2021. The 2023 number is more than the 2022 and 2021 numbers combined. 38%? Amazing. What I think is also telling about some of the shifts that are happening in 2023 is the total number, or the total like monthly spend. So in the last 3 years, I'm going to give you the stats on monthly impulse spend. So in 2020, it was an average of $183 a month. 2021, it was $276. 2022, $314. And so far this year, it's $151. I think it's going to go up simply because we haven't hit December yet, and December is the most expensive time of the year. It's something like 33% actually of purchases in December are impulsive, 1 in 3. And some of the reason why this is happening this year is inflation. Majority of people are saying in this, I'm going to link this article below. Most of the people are saying that inflation is responsible for how they're shopping and curbing their spending. One stat that makes me a little bit sad is this one. 77% of people have been conscientious about their budget this year because of inflation. 40% said they spent more impulsively on necessities than luxuries. I think it is wonderful that impulse spending and like overconsumption is, a little bit lower this year so far. I think that is a wonderful thing, but I do also wonder, is this like primarily driven by inflation, or is this primarily driven by people desiring change for themselves? My gut is telling me it's primarily inflation, which feels more like a cost of living crisis than people deciding to spend within their means, or people deciding to change their habits. And when everyday necessities become more expensive, and people can't afford to live like that, I'm not going to celebrate that. So that's today's video. I had fun going through these stats and doing this research. I'd love to know what you think. Did any of these stats kind of strike you as interesting, exciting, or perhaps inaccurate? Anything you disagree with? Love to know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, hanging out with me today. I hope to see you again around here soon. Bye.